joining us from Texas, the great state of Texas, the 32nd district, is Congressman. He's challenging Ted Cruz for the Senate. We need him to win. Let me welcome Representative Colin Allred. Hi.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Thanks for coming through. Listen, first of all, Texas was on the map because Jasmine Crockett did what she did in the committee with the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing. Were you watching this play out? Shocked? Awed? What?
Well, she is my neighbor, so we represent Dallas together. And I've known Jasmine for a while. And so, I wasn't in that committee, but I heard about it pretty quickly afterwards that some crazy stuff had gone down. And then I had to go find the video for myself. And, listen, I know folks get a little bit down on Congress and things like that, but there is a certain level of decorum that's supposed to be observed. And what Marjorie Taylor Greene did in insulting another member's appearance is outrageous and unacceptable. And so I blame the chairman of the committee for not controlling his members. And people don't go to work to get insulted, and they certainly don't come to the United States Congress to get insulted.
Are there any serious people in on the other side? I mean, these people seem like unserious people.
Joe, I think it's a really good question because I have some friends on the other side, and I've been a very bipartisan member of Congress. But a lot of those folks who I've worked, best with, who we have a common level of respect with, are either leaving or have left. And that's one of my big concerns for the House of Representatives is I've been seeing sort of the, if you want to call it the incentive structure, has been changing so much. So it's not about getting things done and helping people. It's about getting attention, what you can do to please maybe an audience of one in some cases. It's gotten to in a much worse place just in my 6 years that I've been here. And so, that's one of the reasons why I'm running against Ted Cruz, though, to be honest with you. I think he was one of the first ones to start this trend away from substance and towards this kind of performative nonsense.
I think he should only be referred to as Raphael, just FYI.
That might help him. Joel Christian Gill is here. Colin Allred is here as well. Texas rep who is running for Senate in November against Ted Cruz. Some of you may know him from NFL. Is a Tennessee Titan. Playing football actually also at the Baylor level. People don't know about that. If you don't, linebacker there, Baylor Bears. Coming in, does this, and he's unlike Herschel Walker, actually is pretty smart. Say less. Don't respond. I just had to throw that because I feel like Texas is a strange state. It has more Black people than any other state in our union. Mississippi has more per capita. At the same time, it's pretty apartheid, where it has been gerrymandered into a lack of power in the hands of people who are actually represented. So it's all packed into Dallas and to this area of Houston, where the numbers should have more. We should have more representation. And I'm not even talking about complexion at this point, just people representing people with ideals. How do you break through that with this current construct in Texas?
Well, we are a gerrymandered state, and that I think has so many negative impacts for us, certainly for communities being represented, but also I think it produces these extreme politicians that we keep talking about. And you're right. I mean, Texas is an incredibly diverse state, and should I be elected, I would be the first African American to ever represent Texas in the United States Senate. And I think that would say a lot about how far we've come, being one of the states that fought on the Confederate side in the Union. A state where ancestors of mine were enslaved, and now I have a chance to potentially be a United States senator. And it's been my honor to serve as the first African American who sits in my seat in the Congress. And so, I'm used to setting first. And we have a lot of a long tradition also of trailblazers from Texas, like Barbara Jordan, who I think most folks know about, but others that folks might not know as much about, like Eddie Bernice Johnson, who passed away recently, and she was a mentor of mine and friend of mine. She served us for 50 years, and almost everything she did, she was the first person to do it, the first Black woman to serve our area in the state legislature and the state Senate and the Congress to pass the bills that she passed. And so I think that's the real story of Texas. We've actually, I think, been kind of hijacked by a group of extremists who are making us seem like a state that we're not. And what we have to do is stand up for the Texas that I know we are. And to me, the biggest issue there is that we've not actually been a red state. We've been a non-voting state. I was a voting rights lawyer after my NFL career. So I was raised by a single mom in Dallas. Went to public schools, made it to Baylor, made it to the NFL, and then went to law school and became a voting rights lawyer. And we have some of the most restrictive laws in the entire country. There's no doubt about that. But we also have some of our own folks who've decided to take themselves out of the process. And that, to me, in some ways, when I think about folks who I started with, like John Lewis, who nearly died for us to have the right to vote. When I think about our predecessors who worked so hard to get us to this point, this is a time when we can't check out, when so much is at stake for us as African Americans, but also just for the country. No one gave us the right to vote. We had to fight for it. And now I think we have to make sure that we exercise that right in this election.
How do you pull those people? Because I've read specifically that Texas is not a red state; it is a non-voting state. Exactly what you said. So how do you, because of specifically the mainstream Democratic Party, not, you have people in the party whose voices are in a lot of ways marginalized, like AOC and Ayanna Presley, because of their politics. How do you, and some of the things that they say are very popular, how do you get that message out to the people who are not like that you basically have a blue wave that you could tap into if you could figure out how to get that how do you fight the mainstream party? I guess that's my question, because my issue with the Democratic Party is that you have to fight the mainstream party. How do you do that without alienating them?
I think it's different for different folks. And I think, policy is important. But I also think that we just haven't had enough of kind of the on the ground organizing, the hard work of helping folks overcome these initial hurdles. My mom worked two jobs. When she was raising me, she was a teacher during the day, and she would do this thing called Homework Hotline at night, where she would answer questions from kids who had issues with their homework. It was before the internet, of course. And folks who are doing that, when they're juggling so much, it's hard to throw in there also overcoming maybe onerous laws or adding an additional burden of having to stay up on some of the issues and knowing when you're going to vote and how to get involved with that. And so that's where campaigns can come in and help kind of lower that initial bar, so that folks can feel like they can get involved. And yet, when I've always been actually surprised at how modest, when I talk to folks, what they want from us, what they want to see done. Most folks I come across, don't want to see us do everything for them. They basically want a shift in priorities. They feel like they have a shot, and they think then it's up to them. And that's how I feel too. That it's up to us to put those ladders of opportunity in place to give folks a chance. And if we don't do that, then whatever that potential was wasted, it's on us. But if we do give you that shot, then from there, of course, you got to take it. And I think that's, unfortunately, we haven't built those ladders enough in Texas and certainly around the country. And we're underinvesting in our education system. We have the highest uninsured rate in the country. As has been discussed, we have real issues around voter suppression. And so that's made it harder, I think, for all these things to go forward. But both through the campaign, but also through, I think these kind of person-to-person conversations, I know we can overcome it. And we've gotten pretty close. Ted Cruz won very narrowly in 2018. And our city, we've been seeing closer and closer elections. And in this election, I'm going to beat Ted Cruz. And then I think it's going to send a strong message about who we are.
What are you going to do different? So Beto lost to him by roughly 200,000 votes in a state that in the primary, only 12% of the people showed up in March. 12% showed up in March. 12%. How do you get those other folks to show up? How do you get the other half of the 17, 18 million voters to show up?
Yeah. Well, for us, of course, the primaries, what we've seen is that's not really predictive of what we're going to see in the general election. We're having an issue with getting folks to vote in November, much less in March, right? So that's been an ongoing issue. But listen, like I said, I think there's no easy way to turn a maybe voter into a voter. It's just hard work. Yes, you can have a great candidate, and yes, you can I have a story to tell, and I hope folks will get to know me and know my story about, coming up the hard way, going to our public schools, that it was a big deal for my family that I got a scholarship to play football and then made it to the NFL. And that as soon as I finished my career, I started giving back and serving the community as a voting rights lawyer. I served in the Obama administration. I served in Congress in a way that's gotten things done. That's a story that I want folks to know. I think once they know that, then we got to make sure that we're helping them overcome some of the hurdles that are in the way. But then also after that, it's just organizing, getting folks out and 10, 12, 14 interactions with folks. And that's really the hard work of democracy. President Obama used to tell us that democracy is not a spectator sport. You're not watching the teams play it out. You're one of the players on the field. And if you don't get involved, then that's also an act that's going to have an impact. And so, I'm confident that we're going to stand up.
All right. So what are you going to do when you go to the Senate? We're talking with Representative Colin Allred. Right now, he's representing the 32nd District of Texas, the Dallas area. He's a Democrat. Going to the Senate, we need numbers, right? Because there are three branches of government. I keep telling people, I do a little civics lesson. The judicial branch is toast. Unless we pack the courts, your rights for the next 50 years are in the hands of people who may not think you deserve to have rights. So let's put that over there. So now we have the legislative branch and the executive branch, which is the president. Based on the polls, it looks like it's going to be dicey in November. The Congress, which makes up the Senate and the House of Representatives, right now the Senate is holding on by a tiny thread. And Kamala Harris has probably broken more ties than any other vice presidents in the history of this country. That's how tight it is. We need this seat. What is your plan in terms of pushing legislation? What's on your agenda, Colin Allred? What are you going to do for the people of Texas and for Americans when you get there?
Yeah, I mean, as much as obviously the national picture matters to folks, I'm a fourth generation Texan, and I think that we have had a senator who has not cared about 30 million Texans. So to us, it has to be about who's going to lead us for the next 6 years, who will actually care about us, who won't abandon us when the lights go out and 30 million Texans are freezing in the dark, thinks it's a good time to go to Cancun to go on vacation, or who wants to take what we're experiencing in Texas, which is what a near total ban on abortion looks like, and spreading that to the entire country with a nationwide abortion ban, which is what Ted Cruz wants to do. So we have a lot of work to do. To me, the first thing has to be to restore freedom to Texans, freedom to make your own healthcare decisions, including access to an abortion, freedom that if you work hard and play by the rules that you can get ahead. Let's have an economy that works for everybody. Freedom that you can retire with dignity when the time comes. And Ted Cruz is constantly attacking Medicare and Social Security. But the other things are, I think, foundational, which is we have to restore our democracy and protect it and make sure things like January 6th never happen again, but also that we expand and take on the affirmative work of expanding voting rights, because we can't rely on the courts anymore, to your point, Karen. And the Article 1 of the Constitution that deals with the Congress, and I think our founders meant it that way, that we really shouldn't be relying on the courts for making some of these gains. It should be done legislatively. And so one of my first acts will be to make sure that we pass the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, that we can pass the Equality Act, protect LGBTQ plus rights, that will codify Roe v. Wade and go back to the standard that we've had for the last 50 years. That would be tremendous steps forward for us on civil rights and on our democracy. And I think would put us on a much better footing going forward.
I couldn't agree more.
Do people in Texas care enough about abortion for that to be the thing that we spend most of our time talking about? I mean, I do, right? But do people in Texas care as much? Listen,
my wife and I have had two boys in Dallas in the last 5 years. This is a deeply, deeply personal issue. And this is something that we're experiencing and hearing the stories of what this means every day. And yes, the answer is yes. So this is going to be incredibly important. Not just for the Texas women who are being impacted by this. 26,000 Texas women have been forced to give birth to their rapist child since this law passed, according to the Houston Chronicle. These stories of moms of two, like Kate Cox in Dallas, who had to go to the emergency room 4 times, and her doctor said she needed a medically necessary abortion, and her state that said that she couldn't get it. She had to flee the state. Those stories are going to matter, and they matter incredibly, and we'll tell those stories. But it's also going to have so many impacts downstream on our economy, on our university systems, on our medical schools, on the doctors that are here in this state, because this extremism has gone too far, and this position has gone way too far. And so, yes, I think it's going to matter. And it's also, I think this is about freedom. And Texans, I'm a fourth generation Texan, as I said, we believe in freedom. And this is not it. We have counties in Texas saying that if you drive through the county, if you use the county roads, that you can't use them to access an abortion. How are they going to enforce that? They start pulling Texas women over and asking them, what's the nature of your travel? And start inquiring as
Yes.
to women's condition. I mean, in the United States of America in 2024, are we really having this conversation about tracking women's pregnancies? This is outrageous. And we have to stand up. And listen, the United States, listen, we have a story to tell also. That we have come from, I think, been constantly trying to perfect our union. And as I said, it is not very long ago, it's in the lifetime of my parents' generation, that I couldn't even run for this office. And now I have a very good chance to beat Ted Cruz and be our first African-American senator, with God's grace. So, I think this is going to be a really important issue. It's not the only one, but I think it's also one that I think speaks to a broader issue of freedom.
When you win, will you promise to come back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then next
listen.
time I'll put on a jacket for you.
No, listen. We're home here, so you don't have to worry about all of that. As look at Joel.
What's wrong with my background?
I like what Joel's wearing. Yeah, I think Joel looks fine.
Look at Joel's stuff. The stuff books all crooked and everything. Listen, much success to you. We are absolutely strategic here on the Karen Hunter Show. Whether I like you or not, I like your politics, and that is important to us. And Ted Cruz is a dumpster fire and a horrible human being who let a man talk about his wife and his father and still kissed his ass. That's not a person of character that we should be following. Texas deserves better, and I think Colin Allred is better.